In 1976, a mother in Salford fed her family of 6 for an entire week on £4.30. No food bank, no government handout. Just knowledge passed down through generations of women who understood that hunger was a problem you solved with ingenuity, not money. Number 17 on this list cost less than 3 pence per portion, and it kept children full until bedtime. Number 8 was so common in council estates that school nurses could recognize the children who lived on it. And number 3, scientists have now discovered, actually provided more balanced nutrition than half the ready meals in your freezer today. These 25 meals were not gourmet. They were not pretty. They were survival dressed up as supper. Before we start, subscribe, because this list might remind you of something you have not tasted in decades. Let us count down the 25 meals British kids grew up eating when money was tight. Number 25. Toast and dripping. Before avocado toast, British children ate toast spread thick with beef dripping, the rendered fat saved from Sunday's roast. A loaf cost 11 pence in 1955, and dripping was free if you had cooked meat that week. Mothers kept the fat in ceramic pots where it solidified into pale layers streaked with brown jelly, the precious meat juices that settled at the bottom. That jelly was the prize. Children scraped the toast across the pot, hoping to catch a smear of the dark, intensely savory sediment beneath the white fat. A pinch of salt, maybe pepper if your family was fancy, and that was breakfast sorted. Some families still keep the tradition alive, though most threw out their dripping jars when margarine became cheap. It turns out the doctors might have been wrong about saturated fat. The dripping jars never came back. Number 24. Sugar sandwiches, 2 slices of white bread. A thick spread of margarine. A generous coating of granulated sugar. That was pudding, breakfast, and sometimes tea when the cupboards were bare. Sugar sandwiches cost perhaps a penny per sandwich in the early 1970s. The texture was what made it work, the crunch of sugar against soft bread dissolving on your tongue. Mothers knew it was not nutrition, but it was calories, and calories kept children quiet when there was nothing else to offer. In mining communities and factory towns, sugar sandwiches appeared in lunchboxes without shame. Everyone understood. You ate what there was. School surveys from the 1980s found nearly 1 in 5 children from low-income families had eaten one in the previous week. The sandwich was a secret everyone kept. Number 23. Chip butty. The chip butty might be the most British meal ever invented. Hot chips from the fryer, piled onto buttered white bread, pressed flat until the butter melted and the bread went translucent with grease. A splash of vinegar, a shake of salt. Dinner for under 50 pence when fish was too dear. In the 1970s, chips cost 15 pence from most chippies. Add a 4-penny bread roll, and you had a meal that kept a teenager satisfied until morning. The chip butty was Friday night tea for families who could not afford the fish. Some added brown sauce, some insisted on ketchup. The purists demanded nothing but salt and vinegar. The bread had to be cheap white, never wholemeal, soft enough to compress around the chips without fighting back. Number 22. Bread and milk. When illness struck or money vanished entirely, bread and milk appeared. Stale bread, torn into chunks, dropped into a bowl, covered with warm milk and sprinkled with sugar. It was invalid food, nursery food, desperation food. A meal that cost almost nothing and went down easy. Hospital records from the 1940s show bread and milk prescribed for recovering patients. But in working-class homes, when the larder held nothing but bread ends and milk, this became supper. Children ate it without complaint, because complaining meant acknowledging how bad things had become. The warmth of the milk softened the bread into something almost porridge-like, Some mothers added condensed milk for extra sweetness. The meal vanished from most homes by the 1990s, but anyone over 50 remembers the taste. Number 21. Beans on toast. The great equalizer of British childhood. Beans on toast fed council estate, kids, and cabinet ministers' children alike. A tin of Heinz cost 9 pence in 1972, enough to cover 4 slices of toast. The meal required no skill, no planning, and almost no money. Open a tin. Heat the beans. Make the toast. Combine. By the 1980s, Heinz was selling over 2 million tins every day in Britain. The beans had to be hot enough to soften the bread slightly, creating that perfect soggy and crisp combination. Some families added cheese on top, grilled until bubbling. Others stretched a single tin across 3 children. Nutritionists now point out that beans on toast is surprisingly balanced. Our mothers knew this instinctively. Number 20. Fried egg sandwiches. Eggs were cheap and bread was cheap. Together they made a meal that felt more substantial than it had any right to. The egg had to be fried in enough fat to crisp the edges while keeping the yolk runny. 2 fried eggs between 2 slices of buttered bread, pressed down so the yolk broke and soaked into the crumb. A fried egg sandwich cost perhaps 12 pence to make in 1985. It was the meal that appeared on Saturday lunchtimes when mothers were too tired for anything elaborate, and on Wednesday evenings when the weekly shop had not happened yet. The yolk running down your chin, caught with a finger and licked clean. That was the taste of childhood for millions of British kids. First pattern break. The economics of poverty cooking. Here is what nobody tells you about these meals. They were not accidents. They were calculations. Every mother living on family allowance learned to think in pence per portion, calories per pound, days until payday. The Ministry of Food had taught a generation during rationing, and those women taught their daughters. A 1975 survey found working-class mothers could name the exact cost of every meal they served, down to the penny. They knew potatoes were cheaper per calorie than bread, that eggs provided more protein per shilling than cheap mince. This knowledge has been lost. We reach for ready meals, spending £5 on what our grandmothers would have made for 50 pence. The meals on this list were mathematics, survival equations solved 3 times a day. Number 19. Mince and tatties. Scotland claimed this dish as its own, but versions appeared across Britain wherever budgets were tight. A pound of basic mince cost around 30 pence in 1978. Stretched with onions, carrots, and a handful of oats, it could feed 5. The mince was browned, then simmered with stock made from an OXO cube until thick and savory. Served over mashed potatoes, the gravy soaked into the mash, turning it beige and delicious. Children made patterns in the potato with their forks, building walls to contain the mince. Oats were the secret, swelling as they cooked and making the mince seem more generous than it was. A trick learned during both wars and never forgotten. Number 18. Toast and gravy. When there was no meat for the gravy to accompany, the gravy became the meal. OXO cubes dissolved in hot water, thickened with flour, and poured over hot buttered toast. That was supper. The gravy had to be thick enough to cling to the bread, without making it instantly soggy. Some mothers fried onions first, building a base that almost tasted like meat had been involved. An OXO cube cost a penny or 2. The entire meal came in under 10 pence per person. During the miners' strikes, toast and gravy appeared on tables across the north, a meal that acknowledged hardship without surrendering to it. It tasted like mothers making something from nothing, which is what love looked like when money had run out. Number 17. Potato cakes. Leftover mashed potato mixed with flour and fried in dripping until golden. Potato cakes rescued yesterday's dinner from the bin, transforming cold leftovers into something hot and crisp. A batch cost almost nothing, assuming you had already paid for the potatoes. The trick was getting the ratio right, enough flour to hold them together without making them heavy. Some added an egg for binding. Some worked in chopped scallions or grated cheese. In Wales, they were tatties roast. In Ireland, they were boxty. Across working-class Britain, they were simply potato cakes, served with beans or eggs or just ketchup. Nothing was wasted. Not the potatoes, not the fat, not even the crumbs. Poverty cooking's fundamental principle. Today's leftovers are tomorrow's meal. Number 16. Tinned spaghetti on toast. Heinz spaghetti hoops heated and poured over toast. A meal so simple it barely qualified as cooking, yet it fed millions of British children through the 1980s and the 1990s. A tin cost around 20 pence, enough for 2 servings. The sauce was sweet and tangy, nothing like Italian food, but entirely its own thing. Children loved it. Teachers recognized it as the breakfast of kids whose parents worked early shifts and left them to feed themselves. The spaghetti had to be hot enough to make the toast go slightly soft underneath, while staying firm on the surface. The meal took 3 minutes from tin to table, cheap enough to serve every single day. Second pattern break. The stigma of poverty food. Here is what made these meals complicated. Everyone knew what they meant. Teachers could tell which children ate sugar sandwiches by their packed lunches. Neighbors noticed when the Sunday roast disappeared. Children learned early to lie about what they had for tea, inventing meals that sounded more respectable. The shame of poverty food was sometimes worse than the poverty itself. Mothers who served bread and dripping felt they were failing, even as they performed miracles of economy. This stigma drove many dishes underground. People stopped admitting they ate them. Recipes were never written down because writing them meant acknowledging what they represented. Only now, decades later, are people beginning to reclaim them. Number 15. Cheese on toast. The simplest version of cooking that still felt like cooking. Bread under the grill, topped with slices of cheap cheddar, cooked until bubbling and brown at the edges. A portion cost perhaps 15 pence in the 1980s. The skill was in the timing. Too short, and the cheese stayed rubbery. Too long, and it burned. The perfect cheese on toast had bubbles, brown spots, and edges that crisped against the bread. Some added Worcestershire sauce, creating a poor man's Welsh rarebit. Some sliced tomatoes on top. The arguments about proper cheese on toast could last for hours, which was part of the point. When you had very little, you developed strong opinions about how to make the most of it. Number 14. Spam fritters. Tinned spam sliced thick, dipped in batter and deep fried until golden. A meal that transformed processed meat into something almost celebratory. Spam cost around 40 pence a tin in 1985, and 1 tin made 6 generous fritters. The batter was simple. Flour and water, sometimes with an egg. The spam slices went in pale and came out golden, the batter puffing into crisp shells. Served with chips and beans, spam fritters felt like proper tea. Fish and chip shops sold them for years, a cheaper alternative to fish. The texture was the thing, crisp batter against soft, salty meat. Spam fritters disappeared from most chippy menus in the 1990s, but for a generation, they were Friday night. Number 13. Liver and onions. Offal was cheap because nobody wanted it. Lamb's liver cost a fraction of proper meat, and mothers who knew how to cook it fed their families for pennies. The liver had to be sliced thin and cooked fast, or it turned to shoe leather. Smothered in fried onions and gravy, served with mashed potatoes, it became a meal with genuine nutritional value. Liver was iron-rich at a time when many working-class children were borderline anemic. Health visitors quietly recommended it to mothers whose children looked pale. A pound of liver cost around 30 pence in 1980, enough to feed 4. The smell divided families. Some children learned to love the minerally intense flavor. Others hid liver under their mashed potato. Bird's eye fish fingers became the protein of choice for British children who refused actual fish. 4 fish fingers cost around 25 pence in 1982, enough for 2 sandwiches. Grilled until crisp, they were layered between buttered white bread with a squeeze of ketchup or tartar sauce. The fish finger sandwich was the meal children made for themselves when parents were working late. It was the first real cooking many kids attempted. Some added lettuce for crunch. Some insisted on brown bread for supposed health benefits. The fish finger sandwich transcended class boundaries, appearing in packed lunches across council estates and grammar schools alike. Democratic food, cheap enough for anyone, and acceptable enough for everyone. Number 11. Stew and dumplings. This was the original meal of British poverty cooking. Whatever vegetables were cheap and whatever meat could be afforded simmered for hours, with suet dumplings floating on top. A pot of stew could cost 50 pence in the 1970s, using scrag end of mutton or shin of beef no one else wanted. Long cooking broke down tough connective tissue, making cheap cuts tender. Dumplings were flour, suet, and water, dropped into the simmering stew to puff up and absorb gravy. One pot fed the family for 2 days, reheated and stretched with extra potatoes. Children came home from school to that smell and knew everything was going to be all right, at least for tonight. With enough time and skill, you could make almost nothing taste like plenty. Number 10. Pasta with butter and ketchup. When Italian food arrived in British homes, it arrived broke. Pasta was cheap, cheaper than potatoes per serving, and it required only boiling water. But pasta sauce was expensive, a luxury mothers could not justify. So children ate pasta with butter melted through, and a generous squirt of ketchup on top. The combination sounds strange, but the sweetness against the richness created something genuinely satisfying. A bag of pasta cost around 15 pence in the 1990s, enough for 3 servings. The butter was often margarine, the ketchup often own brand. Some added grated cheese if there was any. The meal was improvisational, assembled from whatever the cupboard held. Third pattern break. The hidden nutrition of poverty meals. Food scientists have begun studying these dishes, and what they found surprised everyone. Many poverty meals provided balanced nutrition, not because mothers understood biochemistry, but because generations of women had learned what kept children healthy through trial and error. Beans on toast offers protein, fiber, and carbohydrates. Liver delivers iron and B vitamins. Many modern diets lack. Even bread and dripping provided fat-soluble vitamins during scarcity. The mothers serving these meals were conducting nutritional experiments without knowing it. Modern processed foods often provide calories without nutrition, filling stomachs while starving cells. The poverty food of previous generations might have been humble, but it was real food, made from recognizable ingredients. We replaced it with convenient emptiness and called it progress. Number 9. Condensed milk sandwiches. A slice of bread spread thick with sweetened condensed milk, folded in half and eaten as a treat. Condensed milk cost around 20 pence a tin in the 1970s, lasting for multiple sandwiches. The sweetness was intense, almost overwhelming, the milk sticky and thick against soft white bread. Children considered this dessert, though in some homes it was simply tea. The tin sat in the cupboard with its lid bent back, a spoon stuck in the slowly thickening contents. Some mothers heated it first, making it runny and sweeter. The meal was pure calories, sugar and fat. But calories were what growing children needed when food was scarce. No one worried about obesity. The concern was whether there would be anything to eat tomorrow. Number 8. Jam sandwiches. The simplest meal on this list, and perhaps the most common. 2 slices of bread, a spread of margarine, a smear of cheap jam. That was packed lunch for millions of British children, carried to school in plastic boxes while other kids unwrapped sandwiches with actual fillings. Jam was cheap, a large jar costing 30 pence or less. The sandwich took 30 seconds to assemble and provided enough calories to get through an afternoon. Some children ate jam sandwiches every single day for years, their parents too proud to apply for free school meals and too poor to afford anything better. Teachers recognized the jam sandwich kids and sometimes quietly shared their own lunches. The sandwich itself was fine, but what it represented marked children in ways that followed them through life. Number 7. Faggots and peas. Faggots, bundles of offal and breadcrumbs wrapped in caul fat, represented the absolute end of waste cooking. Every scrap of the pig went in, liver and heart and lights mixed with onion and sage. In the Midlands, faggots were working-class staples, sold cheaply by butchers. A portion cost around 20 pence in the 1970s, and they were often served with mushy peas and mash. The taste was rich and meaty, more complex than the ingredients suggested. Children either loved faggots or refused them entirely. Mr. Brain's faggots, the tinned version, introduced them to families with no butcher nearby. The dish represented everything modern food culture has forgotten, that every part of an animal deserves respect, and every scrap can become a meal. Number 6. Corned beef sandwiches. That distinctive pink meat pressed between slices of bread became the default filling when everything else ran out. A tin cost around 40 pence in the 1980s and contained enough meat for 6 or 8 sandwiches. The flavor was salty and slightly metallic, the texture dense, nothing like fresh beef but satisfying. Corned beef sandwiches appeared in lunch boxes, on tea tables, and as late-night snacks. Some people added pickle for sharpness. Some spread on mustard. The sandwiches were portable, durable, and required no cooking, perfect for families where both parents worked and children fended for themselves. Corned beef kept without refrigeration, an insurance against weeks when money ran out before payday. Eggy bread. The British version of French toast, made without pretension or maple syrup. Bread dipped in beaten egg and fried in butter, or dripping until golden on both sides. Eggy bread cost perhaps 10 pence per portion and turned stale bread into something worth eating. The outside went crisp, while the inside stayed soft and custardy. Some served it sweet, dusted with sugar. Others served it savory, with bacon and beans. The meal used ingredients every kitchen had and required skills every cook possessed. Children learned to make eggy bread young, standing on stools to reach the stove. The smell of egg frying in butter filled the kitchen with promise, suggesting something good was happening even when cupboards held almost nothing else. Number 4. Scouse. Liverpool's signature dish, born from poverty and named for the people who ate it. Scouse was stew, but also identity, marking you as working-class Liverpool as clearly as your accent. The original version used whatever meat was available, often mutton scraps simmered for hours with potatoes, onions, and carrots until everything merged, thick and savory. Blind Scouse contained no meat at all. It was served when money had completely disappeared. A pot cost perhaps 40 pence and fed a family for 2 days. The dish was eaten with bread to stretch it further, hunks dipped into the gravy to catch every drop. Scouse houses fed dock workers and factory hands throughout the 19th and 20th centuries. Modern restaurants have tried to elevate it, but Scouse is supposed to be humble. That is the point. Number 3. Cheese dreams. A cheese dream was cheese on toast with ambition. 2 slices of bread with cheese sandwiched between, fried in butter until golden on both sides and melting in the middle. The name suggested something magical, and for children whose meals were often bland, cheese dreams delivered. A portion cost perhaps 20 pence, more than plain cheese on toast, but justified by the transformation in the frying pan. The bread went crisp and golden, saturated with butter, while the cheese turned to molten strings stretching when you pulled it apart. Some added ham or tomato. Others kept it simple, trusting the alchemy of bread, cheese, and butter. Cheese dreams were what mothers made when they wanted children to feel special without spending money that did not exist. Number 2. Bubble and squeak. Monday's meal in many working-class homes made from Sunday's leftovers. Cold potatoes and cabbage, mashed together and fried until crisp and brown. The name came from the sound it made in the pan, bubbling and squeaking as the vegetables hit hot fat. A portion cost almost nothing because the ingredients had already been paid for. The skill was in the frying, getting the outside golden while keeping the inside soft. Some added leftover meat, others kept it vegetarian, trusting crispy edges to provide satisfaction. Bubble and squeak represented the fundamental principle that nothing gets wasted. Children grew up watching their mothers transform leftover food and learned without being taught that food was precious. The meal has mostly disappeared now, but anyone who ate bubble and squeak remembers the taste. Number 1. Beans and chips. The ultimate British poverty meal. A pile of oven chips and a tin of beans on a plate. Nothing else required. Beans and chips cost around 30 pence in 1990, cheap enough to serve every single night. The meal required no skill, no planning, and no ingredients beyond what every corner shop stocked. Children loved it. Parents tolerated serving it. The combination of soft beans and crispy chips, sweet tomato sauce, and salty potato worked perfectly together despite having no culinary tradition behind it. Beans and chips was the meal that said, "We have nothing, but we have this." It was the fallback when every other option had been exhausted. It was not glamorous, not even interesting, but it was sufficient. Sufficient kept families together and children growing through times when sufficiency was the best anyone could hope for. Share which of these meals you remember in the comments. Tell me if your family had their own versions, their own secrets for making nothing taste like something. These dishes were not just food. They were survival, and love expressed through economy. Care measured in pence per portion. Your mother knew. Your grandmother knew. Now, perhaps, you understand why they knew. Sometimes the most important meals are not the ones that taste the best. They are the ones that meant you ate at all.